This video is made possible by the following mad lads. All their awesome gear they supplied to me can be checked out in the description below. Hey guys, Slightly Ill Boy here, and welcome to the release version of Assetto Corsa Competizione. So, after 8 months of being in early access, ACC finally became a fully fledged release title on Steam on the 29th of this month. And I actually streamed this game on the 29th for about 3.5 hours or so, and the question I was asked most during that time is, Jimmy, is this game worth my money? So I thought it would be a nice idea for me to sit down and kind of talk to you guys about my initial impressions of ACC after about 10 hours of gameplay. I've played a little bit off camera as well, and let you know whether this game is worth 35 of your finest English pounds. And I guess the question to start this off is, what do you want from this game? Fans of the first Assetto Corsa will probably be disappointed to learn that ACC is quite unlike its predecessor. And that's because ACC is the official game of the Blancpain Endurance series, which means that, cool, great, we have a fully licensed series, but we only have one series, so one class of cars, and one calendar worth of tracks. And when I say one season's worth of tracks, I mean 10 tracks. There are 10 tracks in total in this game. Now, the reason why I mentioned the first Assetto Corsa title is because that game was moddable. You can put in third-party cars, third-party tracks, and like the original R Factor, it significantly improved the lifespan of that game. At this moment in time, Assetto Corsa Competizione is not moddable, so what you see is what you get. But for me, that's not really a deal breaker, seeing as ACC might have the Assetto Corsa name on, but that's really as far as it goes in terms of similarity. Now, one of the things I was looking forward to, because I just love this kind of thing in video games, is the career mode. I love the idea of being able to role play as a driver and take my team to the top, be it through strategy or being it through improving the car and testing. I'm a nerd, I love that kind of shit. But after playing a fair chunk of the career mode both on and off camera, I gotta say I'm fairly disappointed in what it is. When I first started the career, it seemed like a really interesting concept. You start off by doing a test day for a Lamborghini Super Trofeo team, and essentially just seeing how decent you are in the car, how you handle the conditions, what your consistency is like, all that kind of stuff. That is what is implied when you start the session. But after you drive around for a while, you kind of just realise that it's essentially just a 40-minute practice session before you get into the main part of the career. And the main part of the career isn't much better either. You're basically just doing a championship mode, but with your name as the driver as opposed to one of the people who race in real life. Even when the game tries to break up the races with testing sessions, as they call it, again, it's just a 10-minute practice session that you are forced to complete before you can progress to the next race. It just seems like the game is trying to waste your time. A good example of a career mode for me would be F1 2018, because whilst in that game you are still doing practice sessions, qualifying sessions, all those things, you are being rewarded for your efforts. So, for example, if you complete a practice session and do all the things the team asks of you, you then get development points, which then make the car faster and affect your experience as a player in that career mode. You have some form of control over how well you do. Whereas in ACC, it's turn up, do this unskippable practice session that you get nothing for, and then go to the race. Now, admittedly, I've only driven about 3 hours of the career mode. It might get better as time goes on, but 3 hours is a long time to not be having fun, and I think it will turn a lot of people off. But let's talk about the racing and the driving itself, because of course that's why a lot of people are going to be playing this game. It's a driving simulator after all, so how is that experience? And I'm happy to say that the racing experience in ACC is a lot of fun. I've really been enjoying myself so far, especially when racing against closely matched AI. You can really race these AI door to door, and they won't give you any room. It's like racing a real life GT3 driver. Like most AI, they do have their slow corners occasionally, but as you can probably see from this background footage, they are a lot of fun to race against. And I'm happy to say the same about the driving in this game. There is a decent selection of different cars and different drivetrains in this game, and it would have been very easy to make them all very similar and not give the cars any unique characteristics, but I'm really glad to say that every car in this game feels different. For example, the Aston Martin I'm driving the background footage here had a tendency to understeer, probably because there's a massive V12 stuffed in the front of it. Then on the other end of the spectrum, when driving the Porsche, that car felt like when you came off throttle to try and turn into the corner, that the car wanted just to continue to rotate from the rear, which is what you would expect from that kind of car. All cars have setup tuning options, so if you're not liking the way it drives, you can try and dampen it slightly. And of course you can do things like change brake bias on the fly, change ABS on the fly, change TC on the fly. It feels like a very authentic GT3 experience. And on the subject of the cars, they are very well modelled on both the outside and the inside. In fact, in this Aston Martin I'm driving, you can see the texture of the suede dash there. It's such a nice little effect. And in addition, the cars all sound amazing. I genuinely think that ACC has some of the best sounding GT3s in any sim. My personal favourites being the Lexus, and of course this Aston Martin V12. It just sounds absolutely fantastic, and it does a lot for the sake of immersion. It really puts you in the car. In fact, I would go as far as saying that these are some of the best GT3s that you can drive in sim racing. In terms of force feedback, I had to do a little bit of tweaking to get the wheel feeling how I wanted it to. Now, I use a direct drive wheel, so some of the stuff that I say here is not going to be applicable for everyone, but the thing that I found I had most difficulty with was the dampening. Getting the dampening right in game for me was probably the most important thing, because I had it set incorrectly when I streamed this game a couple of days ago, and that meant when going through slow speed corners I had very little feeling. It felt like I was driving through a thick soup or something like that. I think there is still room for improvement with both my wheel calibration and with the inbuilt force feedback itself, but I've got it feeling a bit better now, so when I am actually going through corners I actually feel what the front of the car is doing. Where the force feedback feels really nice for me is in faster and mid-speed corners. Of course, in this video we have a Rouge, and when going through there, the car feels really light through the wheel. It feels like you're really on the edge going through this fantastic corner. And for me that's really impressive, considering that I'm not getting any G-force, of course. I'm only getting that feeling through the wheel, so I'm really a big fan of that. I'd say the one thing that does need looking at in ACC is how the curbs affect the car. It does feel like the curbs have a very high friction rating, which means when you touch them they either slow the car down or pull you off the circuit, which isn't really how curbs act in real life, so maybe a setting to be tweaked there, but otherwise the driving is fairly solid. And in terms of immersion, this game has some decent features. For example, dynamic weather in case you fancy spearing off the course when the rain suddenly comes out of nowhere, and a day-night transition, which we all seem to like oh so much in sim racing. And I would usually say that the VR in this game is fairly decent too, well it was in early access anyway, but it seems since the release that something's gone wrong and VR just doesn't seem to work at all for a lot of people. The problems are so bad for VR in ACC right now that the developers have taken away the VR tab or the VR feature from the store page. Now that to me is not good enough for a full release of a game. And speaking of not good enough, let's talk about multiplayer a bit. When ACC was announced, it was very much implied, I think anyway, and I'm talking from my personal viewpoint here, we would be getting a similar rating / safety system from what we would see online in a game like iRacing. But in a recent post on Steam, the developers of ACC said no, we never promised this, and what you're going to be getting instead is a matchmaking system. And whilst the matchmaking will allow you to enter races with people with a similar rating to you, all that stuff about maybe having a ranking online, leaderboards, I don't think that's going to exist. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I have tried to look it up, I can't find anything on it. For me that takes away a big part of what Assetto Corsa Competizione it should be all about. I mean, it's in the name, Competizione. Now that's not to say you can't just do pickup racing in ACC. I did a bit of that the other day when the servers were working. They were very intermittent when I was trying to play it the other day. But there aren't really many strict rules in that. For example, I was driving around Zolder, I got bashed off the circuit, completely crashed into from behind, forced over the chicane. I then got a stop-go penalty, so I just quit the race because that's not fair. I know it's very hard to assign blame in online collisions, but if that's what the penalty system is going to be like, then I'm not really interested in racing in those kind of lobbies. Now the developers have said they are going to be working alongside the game as it grows to add more features into the multiplayer, stuff like that, but hate to break it to you guys, early access is done now. This is the full release of the game. It should already be implemented, in my opinion anyway. And so, returning to the question, is this game worth your money? And honestly, I find it very hard to give a straight yes or no. I think if you are expecting a game that is like Assetto Corsa, where you can mod stuff and drive all the different cars and tracks that you want to drive throughout history, then probably not. But if you're someone who's looking for more of a GTR 2 style experience with, you know, one set of cars, one set of tracks to drive on, then I think you could get some enjoyment out of this game. But the thing is though, this game still feels like as if it's in early access in quite a few areas. The game seems like it could have used another month or two before being released. I mean, this game was in early access for 8 months before then. There should be pretty much no issues when it comes to release. And for that reason on a whole, I'd say the game isn't really worth your money right now. Give Kunos a couple of months maybe to sort things out, get rid of all the bugs that shouldn't have been there in the first place, then maybe spend £35 on this game. But right now, as it stands, I'd say probably leave it. But please don't take that as me saying I dislike this game. I actually really enjoy driving this game when it all works and it's all fun and fantastic, but I think the game for me needs a more fleshed out career mode. I think multiplayer needs a bit of adjustment, and things like VR, which are quite a big part of the early access, if they're not working, then that's something that needs to be fixed ASAP. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. It took me a very long time to record because I kept coughing between each take. So if you did enjoy the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button, maybe hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification icon, because that way you'll be made notified of future streams and of future videos. And I don't usually mention streams in my video at all, but this weekend I'm going to be taking part alongside my teammates in the iRacing 24 Hours of Le Mans, so if you want to see that, make sure you're subbed to the channel. Massive thank you as always to my patrons and to my sponsors. Take care, have an awesome day, see you all next time.
Good job, mate. You did your best. Bring it back to the pits.